guys, it's Rebecca Oberstadt. In today's video, what I actually wanted to do was use this JD Glow shadow in the shade Sapphire in order to create a look around it. So the first palette I start out with is the Colourpop So Jaded palette and the shade Sapphire. This shade took a little bit of building to get it to work on my eye. I noticed that it was a little dry feeling, but for the most part, this was probably the best shadow besides the JD Glow shadow that I used for this base eye look. I had a lot of trouble working with some of these shades, and of course, one of the shades that I use, well, there's that Terra Moons shade. Oh my God. I had UV pigment all over my face. This is the shade Cotton Candy Sky. I do not recommend any of the Terra Moons. Look at that, all over my nose. I do not recommend any of their neon shadows. They are absolutely awful. I had the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer potion put down on this look, and this shade also, this one's going in the trash. This is something that I've had for more than 10 years. It's the shade Cobalt. It's one of my super shock shadows, and I've literally had it since uh, 2008, maybe 2010 is when I got this shadow. So it was very dry, it's very old, it's very patchy. I had a hard time working with it. It was not pretty. This is an eye look that I was doing that I could do for like Instagram, and I will also edit this for Instagram and just speed it up and put music behind it. All of this is real-time speed. I even used my finger and tried to build it up. This shadow is so old. The pigmentation on it is really bad. So I think everything that I have that is like that, I'm going to throw in the trash. This is the BH Cosmetics Aquarius palette, and it's like the fourth shadow down. It's like a really pretty cobalt color, but as you can see, it also had issues. I'm using an actual BH Cosmetics brush to do this, and next to the other shade, I don't know which one was more patchy, which one was more awful. I ended up at the very end, in order to try and get this to be cohesive, I did get the brush wet, and I used this shade over both of those shades again to try and make them look a little better. This is really bad, guys. Look at how bad this is. And I understand this palette, I've had it for a while, but I've never had it do this. I do have very, very super dry skin everywhere. My eyelids are dry. I know people say that their eyelids are oily. I have never had oily eyelids. I'm even like trying to build it up, and it's like the shadow just does not want to stay. And that's where my mobile lid creases. So it was not having a good time at all. And then the next shadow I go in with, oof, this is the Antilles palette from Nomad Cosmetics. That is the shade called The Baths. I've never had this problem with this shadow either. I have used this palette a lot since I bought this palette last year. I have used this palette so much. And of course, you can't see me. I'm out of frame. I apologize for that. I was not paying attention to the camera. I was trying to get the look done for the simple fact that I was looking really closely, and it's a lighter shade. The shade is fine. It just does not mix well with the shade next to it, the BH shade. It does not want to blend in with it. It does not want to blend together with it. It's like these three matte shadows are all fighting on my eyelid with my eyelid, and it was also not pretty. Again, place shadow with my finger and then try and use the brush to blend out. I use this brush a lot to do detailing work or detailed eye looks, and I never really have had major issues with it working. That, and the color is also very pale. So I like to use something that's a little bit more sticky or tacky when I'm using pastel shadows, especially if it's a lighter shade, just to get them to work a little better. And there I'm going back in with that BH shadow again, trying to build it up. But you'll find a little bit later in this video that there is a serious bald spot on my lid from where my eyelid folds up into my eye socket. I do have partially hooded eyes. I have hooded eyes, but I also have partially deep set eyes. Now this is the star of the show. Had I thought better, I would have just taken this and covered up all three of those shades on my lid, and I'd have just called it a day. This is a beautiful shadow. It is from their Italian collection. It is the shade Sapphire from JD Glow. They are a black owned business, and they are also an independently owned business, also called an indie brand. This is so pretty. I love this color. When I had sapphire jewelry before most of it got stolen, all of the shades of my sapphire gems were all this rich, deep blue. Now, sapphires come in every color but red, because that's a ruby. Sapphires even come in green, funny enough. Emerald is actually in the sapphire family, or they're in the same type of family. But this shade is so gorgeous. This is the color blue that I prefer when it comes to my sapphires. And just look at how amazing that color is. Now, I do go into the Studio 54 palette from Nomad Cosmetics, and I use the shade Last Dance for that upper part that I kind of carved out. And this is a really, really pretty color. It's very sheer though, but it is their special collection. And because it's a little bit flaky, I do use my finger to press over it to make sure that I get it to stick to my lid. And of course, there I am trying to hide some of the front of that really bad shadow on my lid. It was, oh God, it was so bad. It was really bad. Look at the bald spot on the outer edge of my eyelid. That's it's already starting, and it just gets worse from here. Now, this is the palette my friend Jason sent me. This is also Nomad Cosmetics. This is the Orient Express in Simplon Pass. That is another really beautiful sapphire blue shade, but it's not quite as dark as the actual sapphire shade from JD Glow. This can be built up though. This is another one of their like special shades that's kind of flaky. This palette is like my go-to everyday kind of palette. I love using this palette. It brings me a lot of joy. I can create a bunch of different looks with it really quickly. I don't have any problems with any of the shadows in this palette blending or working the way that I want them to. And I also like how it's similar to the sapphire shade, but they're different enough that especially on the eye, you can see one um, is like more purple, whereas one's a little bit more gray compared to each other. Now this is the Fade into Hue palette from Colourpop. That is the shade Hot Copic. This is a really pretty like super shocky kind of shade, and I use that on the outer edge because I did dark and then like a medium shade and then a lighter shade as I like did each of the different rows of my eye, the eye colors. So I wanted to try and kind of stick with that theme when I did the shimmer shades as well, to kind of like bring some of that back in. And I do come back into the So Jaded palette. That is the shade Aquamarine. That also feels like a super shock shadow, and I just wanted to keep this an all, literally an all blue look. Um, I don't know. I'm like how it worked, except for the three colors on my lid above the JD Glow shadow. I am really unhappy with how those turned out. And as the look has progressed, look at how more bald that is. Look at that. Look at that bald spot. How awful is that? So now I'm going back in to the So Jaded palette. That is the first shade that I started with, and I am putting that literally right up against the lash line. And that's a L'Oreal Blue Infallible liner in my waterline. It's like a purpley blue, but that's that sapphire shade from the So Jaded palette that I'm working there. And then I blend it out just a little bit with that other BH brush. I do go in to the inner corner with a glitter, it's like a glitter shade from Lele Posh. I will try and remember to leave all of this linked down below. I also tapped into that Fade into Hue first and put down the Hot Copic shade again just to have that, and then I added a glitter shade over it. So it was just a little extra sparkly. Now I add three different liners here. This is a metallic blue, and I carved this right up above the sapphire shade from JD Glow, and I was very precise with how I did this and where I put it. And it's a different shade of blue than the sapphire shade, but that's okay. It matches well enough that it kind of blended into the shadow. Again, look at how that bald spot is like, And of course the sapphire shade transferred up. You can see where it transferred up. But look at that nasty defined bald spot on the outer edge of my lid. That shadow did not want to stay there. It was like, nope. Definitely that was a nope. It was awful. Absolutely awful. And I'm just doing a little wingy thing here. Now, this is pastel blue, but this is also kind of UV reactant. And I carve out the very top line with this one. And trying to be as precise as possible to get that line nice and thin and sharp. And of course, I've cut out every time. You saw like the top of my head or the side of my head or my hairline for too long. I tried to cut all of that out. And just putting that extra little touch in the front. Now, this is a, oh no wait, that's the metallic blue. The other blue was the UV reactant blue. The first one I used was UV reactant. My bad. This is the metallic blue. And it's just a water activated cake liner. Just carving out around where I put the shimmer shades up there on the upper part of my eye look. And all three of these blues are all different. They're all different undertones as well. And I added some gems, and you can see where I tried to pack that BH shadow back over it. And then of course, because it's a UV reactant look, I had to bring out the black light. And as I like zoom out a little further, you can see all that pigment from the Terra Moons shadow all down my nose and my face. It like lights up my face. Of course, the highlighter also lights up my face, which I think is pretty. But you'll see here in just a second when I zoom out a little bit that you can see like the side of my face, and you can see everywhere that I had fallout from that UV shadow, and it like lights up my nose and the side of my face. And I do have some video clips from where I did video outside as well as inside with the light, so you could see what this looked like in natural daylight. I did this on purpose because I wanted to show you what it looked like. I'm still not happy with that outer edge, but I do love blues. Blues are my favorite color. I'm pretty happy with most part except for that that next to bottom color. If you look, see how like the side of my nose and part of my face is like lighting up funny? That's from that UV shadow fallout. Even with trying to wipe that off with a makeup removing wipe or like the cloth, makeup removing cloth before I did anything else, it still showed up. Even in the pictures, I can still see it glowing on my nose. But this is the finished look. Let me know what you guys think down below, and I will see you guys in another video very soon. Bye.